Hello, everyone. I'm Father Alex Sandahar from St. John the Divine Episcopal Church in Sun City Center, where I'm the rector.
Where you are the rector. We should do a show on what rector means. Yeah.
Rector just means it would be really hard to kick me out.
Okay. It's Latin for ruler, I believe. And
Mm-hmm.
not one to measure, but one to, yeah. And I'm Dave Marshall, rector of All Angels by the Sea on Longboat Key, one of the most beautiful islands in all of Florida, all of the Southeast, and top 7 beaches in the world, something like that. So come on to the beach. It's great. We'll love to see you. And I'm glad that you've joined us today for A Bridge Between, where if you're preaching this Sunday and you have no idea what you're preaching on, if you want to know, deepen your faith, and if you're preaching with your life, Alex and I will hopefully help.
We will try. We will try. So we've decided that while the gospel is what I like to call kind of crispy, where it's you've got to kind of be ready for some conflict when you go into that one. We want to talk about Hebrews today, Paul's letter to the Hebrews. And when you look at this one passage, Paul has been talking about the faith of the people and the faith of the people realized. And, in the letter, the section of the letter we read last Sunday was about the faith of Abraham.
Sure.
Right. Today, we're talking about this passage where it says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, who for the sake of the joy that was set before him endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God." And that
Amen.
is
Hallelujah.
a theological mouthful right there.
It is a theological mountain. It's a beautiful green valley. It's all of this. It's blue sky. It's wonderful. It has clouds. It has pioneer.
Well, it's a theological mouthful.
I know, and I'm just expanding on your mouth.
You can say mountain, yeah.
And I put, yeah.
So, where do you want to start with this one?
You'd mentioned Paul.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's Paul?
So Paul, otherwise known as Saul of Tarsus.
Okay.
He was a Pharisee who was not a huge fan of the early Jesus movement. In fact, he sought permission from the religious authorities to go and put an end to this. What he thought was really an egregious movement away from Judaism.
Yeah.
So he was actually present during the martyrdom of Stephen, the first martyr, the first deacon. The people laid their coats at Saul's feet as this happened.
Yeah.
And he has what many would call a Damascus moment, where he is knocked off his high horse. That's where we get these ideas from.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees the risen Lord who says, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?"
Right.
And eventually what happens is he becomes not just a believer in Jesus, but he becomes the apostle to the Gentiles, to the Greek-speaking world and the Roman Empire. And eventually he is martyred in Rome.
Yeah, from what we understand. Yeah, that's awesome. We call him St. Paul, the Apostle Paul, or just Paul.
Paul.
It's nice that you started with Saul. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to set a trap here. Why do you mention Paul when we're talking about Hebrews?
Because I think Paul wrote Hebrews.
And I believe he did not. So
here
we go.
Neither one of us was there.
Correct.
So default goes to how we originally thought of it?
No. Default goes to how we do this type of stuff. So folks, I don't know if you're bored by this, but there's this fantastic letter called Letter to the Hebrews. And as far as this priest is concerned, the author is unknown. And Alex is standing on tradition. that had assigned this
Tradition.
tradition.
Yeah,
Yes, that this had been assigned to Paul. This letter is so incredibly difficult to read and read
yeah,
that just tackling that part, it doesn't carry any of the Pauline themes. And when I say Pauline, the Paulish, Paul-like.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and so that's where Pauline comes from. I'm not referring
But
to him as female
at
name.
face value, let's just say it is Paul adjacent.
Um, it is an author who didn't want to be known um, because it's not mentioned who it is.
But
And it yes,
still some good ideas, which we're going to talk about.
um, yeah, it almost didn't make it into the Bible,
Yeah.
and part of it is um, that this paragraph that Alex is about to read to you, or do you want me to read it?
I just read it.
You sure that wasn't the first take when my computer crashed?
Nope, I just read it.
You did.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Just
I think so.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. It's early.
it is early.
Yeah.
I thought we just
Oh,
did the intro and
yeah.
anyway.
Well, yeah.
So
So
folks, if you can't tell, we're doing this live, right? That we're
let's.
figuring
You know
this
what?
out.
I'll read it again just to
Thank you.
make sure.
I would love to hear it again.
So therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, who for the sake of the joy that was set before him endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God. So I started when we were just talking about this before we pushed record, that
Mhm.
I said I've wanted to preach on this particular text
Yes, you have.
because
Right.
I think that there is something in common between Jesus and Evil Knievel.
Uh-huh. And what caught my attention was, and you noticed I intentionally took a drink before you said it so that I didn't just do it.
Yeah,
Because between Jesus and Evil Knievel, and when you said it the first time, there was a pause, I swear,
between
between
just evil. Yeah.
one and the
So,
other.
so what is
So
so
you're
what?
talking about the daredevil who rides a motorcycle in the
Yes,
70s,
yes.
80s. Okay,
So
okay.
the reason I say that is because
Okay.
what was Evil Knievel known for? These amazing stunts. Like
Okay.
nobody had ever jumped over 10 school buses or something like that. And so he does this, but what inevitably happens after somebody has done this is there are copycats, right?
Sure.
There are
Right.
people who are like, well, if you can do this, then I can
Right.
do it too, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the 4-minute mile. Nobody could do a
Right.
4-minute mile,
Right.
right? Then a wonderful Englishman does it, and then now a lot of people do it because they know it's possible.
Hmm.
And so I think what the author of the letter of Hebrews is kind of hinting at here is Jesus is the pioneer and the perfecter of our faith.
Okay.
And this trust in God, which is what faith is embodied in Jesus as a person, as God, right? His divine and human nature, but also in his actions.
Hmm.
In going to the cross, Jesus states in a very real way with his words and actions his absolute trust in God. And so Jesus also tells us, if you're going to be my disciple, you need to pick up your cross, meaning your means of sanctification, your means of dying to yourself, so that
Hmm.
you then can receive eternal life. So
Hmm.
Jesus goes before us
Hmm.
and is the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. And you might say he jumps across the 10 school buses and does the 4-minute mile first.
And then other people follow him.
Spiritually, yeah, because they see that it can be done through him in the way
Hmm.
that he exactly did it.
Hmm. Well, folks, Alex was born and raised in Southeast Florida, and I was born and raised in Northwest Washington State. So in the continental United States, it's hard to imagine 2 points of distance further from each other
Yeah.
than those. So we would have what's called Pioneer Days. And the pioneers are a big and important part of Washington State, Pacific Northwest history. Without the pioneers, anyway. So when I think of pioneer, I think of well, you've heard about the two explorers that Lewis
Lewis and Clark.
and
Yeah.
Clark, right? That Jesus is the one carrying the canoe over the top of the mountain, the one that puts it in the river and starts going down, that type of stuff. That the pioneer, the one who stands up on the ledge and looks.
Jesus has a raccoon skin cap.
He has the raccoons. He's got the super sweet jacket with the tassels that hang down. Yes, right. And so that, so for people like me who grew up in Washington State history, and in particularly Indigenous history for Washington, is required both in high school and in college. For any university or school in Washington State, it must be taught, and you have to attend at least one class. So we get this not one class, one semester, that we get engaged in this to find out the pioneer spirit, because even the Native Americans who were there all came from somewhere else, and so it's this thing about pioneer, and that Jesus is the one out there doing the hard stuff. So in this case, that whether it's Chief CL, for whom Seattle is named, or Lewis and Clark, I think what the author here is saying is that Jesus has done the hard work for you. He has already made this path. He has given you the map. He has shown you where the fields are. He's shown you where the streams of water are. He will give you rest. Follow what he has done. That's the pioneer. And then the author wrote, he is the perfecter of our faith. And when you read perfecter, what do you think?
Well, I think a person who is refining something, who is making it, who's making it perfect, who is making it true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think making it, the perfecting of it is making it handheld, or making it so that you can embrace it yourself.
Almost, you might say, almost kind of boiling it down.
Right, right.
And I think that when I think of pioneer, and I think this is a good example of what you're talking about, is Jesus. People had been crucified before Jesus, absolutely, but no one had been crucified for the sins of the whole world.
Right.
No one had gone to their death with the expectation that God was going to raise them from the dead. And so this idea of reconciliation with God from the human perspective doesn't feel possible. We don't see this mechanism for how we are going to embrace reconciliation with God. Jesus is the pioneer of that. And the best part is that we don't have to literally be crucified. All we have to do is believe in him who was crucified, that Jesus was who he says he was, the Son of God, and believe that what he did actually worked. And I think those are two separate things.
Okay.
And what I mean by so here's what I mean by that. There are many people who believe in Jesus. There are even many people who believe in Jesus as divine and human.
Right.
But there are many people who don't want to believe in the cross as the mechanism or the means by which salvation occurs, because we don't like the crucifixion. It's bloody, it's disgusting. There are people who say, oh, it's just God beating up on Jesus, all these other things. So we don't always like the idea of the cross. And so, unfortunately or fortunately, those two things are linked. They can't be separated. Jesus cannot be separated from his cross. It's a key part of who he is. And so if I am going to seek reconciliation with God,
and you mean, when you said separate, you mean the metaphorical cross?
Metaphorically, yes. Jesus did come down from the cross. That's one of the stations. But
that's what I mean, one of the important. Well, I mean, they're all
an important one, yeah. And what I'm saying though is that if I'm going to put my faith in the idea of reconciliation with God being possible, then I have to seek, how does God does that? How does God do that? Well, he does it through Jesus. He does it through the cross. And so what is my relationship to that understanding? And if I don't believe that the cross was necessary for forgiveness of sins, for the reconciliation between God and humanity, then what is my substitute?
What would that substitute be?
Uh, I don't know. I do believe, but no. What I'm saying is that for some people they might say theologically that, well, it was, Jesus's life was an example for us, or Jesus is a moral teacher, or those kinds of things.
Mhm. Yeah. So Jesus can't say the things that he was saying and not get put up on the cross. That and his point, in my opinion, of going on the cross was that nobody else had to. That
Well, nobody else could. I mean, that's
but that the way that it would have been done in the past is that Jesus and his disciples would have all been rounded up and they would have all been crucified. Uh, and
yes.
that this particular pattern, this path that he chose, was the one that would have him go and not anybody else. And we know, of course, later on that the apostles, including Paul, they were also martyred for their belief. But the point is that Jesus did that so that the movement then could grow. And you're talking about sin and the forgiveness in the world, and I think that begins with the incarnation. I think it begins
Yes.
with the birth,
Mm-hmm.
which everybody likes. People like births. They
Well,
like the baby Jesus.
well,
It's the cross.
yes, it's wonderful to have the baby Jesus,
It is. It's wonderful, right?
but
Yes. And so the author of Hebrews in this particular
Mhm.
section that we're reading had said that Jesus endured the cross disregarding its shame.
Yeah.
And so you went straight to talking about why we don't like the cross. It's messy, it's ugly, it's horrible, it's
Mhm.
horrific, it's everything that you basically unspeakable. And but disregarding that. And so now, I mean, if you look behind me, there are a couple of crosses on my wall. That it is
Yes,
it
and
used to be a symbol of torture and death and the power of the empire, and it now has been uh, to the,
and I've got some comments about that. Not about your crosses, but I've got some thoughts about the fact that we wear crosses,
some
and
do.
so
Yeah.
for example, I have a cross that I wear personally.
Mhm.
My son does. Um, our bishop does. Many clergy wear. Many Christians wear, and that's fine. But one of the things I like people to think about is, why are they wearing it?
Mhm.
Because the cross has often become, in recent times, a decoration. It's become fashion. And so when I see a movie star or an athlete wearing a cross encrusted by diamonds, I'm saying to myself, there's something of a cognitive dissonance here, because the cross is a sign of poverty, of
Yeah.
suffering.
Yeah.
Right.
A sign of pouring out oneself.
Right. It's a
That
sign of
he.
emptying oneself.
Yeah.
It's a sign of victory. Yeah. Right.
Right.
But why do we wear? And what statement are we making when we wear it?
Right.
So those are some things that I like people to be thinking about when they wear a cross, and ask, okay, is this just jewelry, or is this a theological statement, a spiritual statement that I'm making about
Mhm.
my relationship to Jesus Christ? Or, I just really like what it looks like and I got it online.
Um, right. Now, there are many paths to get to the Christian faith. And
Mhm.
so somebody might see it as a fashion statement, or they might see, I'm sorry, I don't know if this phone is not supposed to be loud. So,
That was Paul calling about his letter.
and I've, of course, muted my phone.
You were saying?
Wondering where Lynn is. Anyway, so I will now take my phone and, oh, I know, we'll find a nice little drawer for it. There we go. Ta-da!
It's
So, and we're back.
it's it's
It's just in
behind
case you
it's
didn't know that Alex and I are doing this live,
it's
and that
behind the scenes day at A Bridge Between. Go ahead. So you were
yeah,
saying, yeah,
many paths. So
many
somebody might
paths.
see their favorite sports figure or movie star that's wearing a cross, and they might think that that's cool. They might want to emulate it, and then they will start asking questions about what it is. And so it's,
I'm going to disagree.
they're okay. Disagree.
I'm going to disagree because when I see online of the majority of people who are truly famous, who are walking around with the type of jewelry that I'm talking about, and I'm not meaning for this to sound judgmental.
Okay.
I think many of them can be Christian.
Hmm.
I wonder, though, we talk about having many paths. I think about having many examples
Sure.
of Christianity. We talk
Yeah.
about the cloud of witnesses that
Hmm.
the letter to the Hebrews refers to. It's
Hmm.
talking about, I think, the communion of saints. It's
Oh,
talking about the
absolutely, it
people
is.
who've
Yeah.
gone before us, who serve as examples. And the best examples we have of the Christian faith are people who exhibit servanthood, humility,
Hmm.
and a desire to be like Christ, which the people that I'm talking about can do.
Right.
But think about if the person who is wearing the gold and diamond encrusted cross that is about the size of my head,
Right.
who's walking around driving a Lamborghini, is that the example that should be the primary example that a person sees when they are engaging with the Christian life?
Right. Or I get particularly annoyed by seeing people selling products, and I'm talking about men in particular, that
Mm-hmm.
they have an open collared shirt, they're not wearing a tie, and that they specifically take their cross and put it on just on the outside.
Yeah.
So, and then
So
they're
I'm a
trying to sell.
Christian. You can trust me.
Right.
Well,
Right.
like I said, so I find it just problematic, is what I would say.
Okay.
I'm not going to paint everybody with a broad brush, but growing up in South Florida, where we would see a lot of the hip hop rap culture, with the large gold crosses and stuff like that, and then you hear the music, which really does not embody Christ.
Mm-hmm.
With some of its language and themes, there's a disconnect there. And that's where I say that the cross can become fashionable rather than a theological statement. That is not to say that when I wear a cross that I'm the perfect example, because I am not. That's actually one of the reasons I've chosen not to wear an external cross on me. I think my uniform says it enough what my vocation is. Um,
Right.
so, coming back to the idea of Jesus as pioneer and perfecter, he also transforms what the cross means. And to put it in perspective for people, if people today were to watch Jesus be executed,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then we were to turn around and turn a symbol of his execution into something that we wear, it would either be an electric chair
Mm-hmm.
or a gurney for a lethal injection. I mean,
Yeah.
let's think about
Or just the needle itself that
or
you have.
yeah, let's think about that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so that's why the cross as a symbol is so powerful,
Mm-hmm.
and we cannot diminish it.
Right. And I'm glad that you talked about the great cloud of witnesses.
Hmm.
That cloud in Greco-Roman times was a way to describe a crowd. And it just happens to be in English that crowd and cloud sounds similar.
Hmm.
Um, but the idea that the cloud of witnesses are suspended up in the air, that they're outside of the material crowd world, that they are up and around us, and that cloud of witnesses are with Alex right now. They're with me,
Hmm.
and that cloud of witnesses are also with you. And it is our list that we are surrounded by this cloud of witnesses. And some of the cloud are the people that we read in the Bible,
Hmm.
and the author of the Hebrews goes into all sorts of folks, characters from the Bible, and talking about how their life was being fulfilled through faith. And then that right now we have that cloud as well. Uh, there have been worship services that I've been involved in where it
Hmm.
looks as if there is a mist or a cloud between, because what Alex and I do is to begin our tradition is that people stand, we start singing, we're praising God, and we stand at the back and then we process in. So we have this unique stance of being in the back when everybody's in, and then we go. That there have times that I've like blinked several times of like, why is there a mist? You know, is there something going wrong with our air conditioning system? And there's all sorts of humidity, but it's sometimes we can see it, but we in faith believe it is always surrounding us.
Well, and I think we feel it at different times. I felt it at ordinations. I felt it at funerals and
Yeah,
baptisms. It's important to kind of remind ourselves that that is something that is present. So if
mhm,
you're preaching this Sunday, as we are, it's very prudent to be thinking about what is our relationship to the symbol of the cross. What does it mean for Jesus to be somebody who goes ahead of us, who
mhm,
is that pioneer,
mhm.
who demonstrates that trust? And if you're a person who is, preaching in your life, a good question might be to ask, what am I projecting when I go out into the world?
Hmm.
What are people seeing as a Christian? What are people seeing when I go out into the world? It's the person who has all of the bumper stickers and the stickers on their car, that the Christian radio station and the fish symbol and all the stuff like that. But they're misbehaving terribly as they drive and doing road rage. There's the disconnect that we have to be careful with.
Right, because we're also human,
Right,
and
we're also human, but
yeah,
just being
yeah,
conscious
yeah,
of what is the example that we are setting
yeah.
for others.
So the other piece I wanted to talk about is that the sentence is, "We are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. Let us also lay aside every weight and the sin
Mhm.
that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set." The sense here is that the cloud of witnesses, the folks, our ancestors, our spiritual ancestors, if you want to talk about angels and that stuff, everything that we're surrounded by, that were once human and who are now in heaven, they know what it's like to lay aside the weight of sin. And one of my favorite ways of thinking about sin is with thee. And King David, who wrote many of the Psalms, uses sin and as a burden, and the burden is a weight. And he talks quite literally about, I am carrying too heavy of a burden. My feet are giving up. My knees are failing. The sense of this wonderful metaphorical sense of how sin is a weight. And one of the things that Alex and I do, as many other groups do, is that we help people unburden themselves by
Right.
having a pastoral conversation that's just between us and me and the person that's speaking with me, and it goes no further. But they get to unpack what it is that they are carrying. And so when the author is writing, let us also lay aside every weight. It is the sense of, you can do it privately with just you and God. You can do it with a priest like Alex or me, but to set aside, just set down the weight that you're carrying. What is the burden that you're holding? And I've had so many people. It's like, and you would know. I haven't kept a tally, but when somebody has shared that with me and they leave, more often than not, they're like, "I feel so lightweight." Like they just
Yeah.
literally, you feel
Yeah.
buoyed
And
up
I have
again, like a great cloud, right? That this uplifting sense.
I,
Uh,
I have seen that too, and I have felt that when I have gone
and I have
to a
felt it too.
to a priest and had that type of conversation and pastoral interaction. I have walked out feeling lighter.
Hmm.
So I think at the end of the day, there's a lot to chew on here, and I would encourage people to kind of take this one word, one sentence at a time,
Yeah, yeah,
because it is going to be challenging, and you're going to have to pick your lane as to what you want to be preaching on this week, because there's a lot to unpack.
right. And Alex and I just looked at the time. I can't believe we've been through 29 minutes already. Like,
Mhm.
it feels like we're just warming up and can talk more and more. We haven't even gotten to, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God. We haven't even got to that last part. So yeah, this is a fantastic piece of scripture. So whether you are preaching today with your life or you'll be preaching on Sunday, um, that remember you're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, and maybe in your cloud you will count Alex and me and bridge between. some
All right.
of
Well,
the witnesses for you.
well, you are definitely in my cloud.
And Alex, you are definitely my cloud and sunshine too.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, thanks everybody for coming by this morning and spending some time with us. This has been a bridge between. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We've been trying to focus on answering those comments, and there's been some good ones and some good questions that you guys have been posting. But no matter what, preach with your life, preach well this Sunday effectively, and we'll catch you in the next one.
God bless.